Thank you so much. I'm actually humbled, and I have the distinct privilege of being a part of your first launch conference also. And now that I look back and I look at the themes that have been put forward this time, I have no inhibition in saying that the conference, the theme, uh, the thought process that has gone behind it is both futuristic and predictive in nature. And it could not have been more critically timed. And I say that because we have questions and we have answers in the making with glaringly lacking political will to do so, almost a vacuum there. So one wonders that who and what kind of shifts will happen to nudge those in power right now to act, to respond, and I would also say to react. There seems to be a global coma where the realization that all that is happening is not right exists. However, no footwork, no active participation. The status quo is not pretty, but nobody is ready to change the status quo nor bear the cost of being a part of the change. So I think those are questions that we need to ask. I've been asked to define the current moment, so to say. I will try to sort of take that into consideration while making this presentation. But I also think that being online is a huge disadvantage. So I've tried to keep it short, and I'll be very happy to answer questions. In fact, I would like to utilize some of my time to answer questions. So we're good to go, making sense of the current moment and what it means for the international relations. I also want to say that international relations pundits can never do any good predictive analysis. They can only analyze what has happened and are talk machines. And I hope in the new world that you're talking about, the whispers of which are heard by Arundhati Rai, some real footwork happens. So, navigating geopolitical flux in the 2020s or the 21st century, I think they're characterized by an unprecedented convergence of polycrisis. Polycrisis, multiple crisis, was the term coined about 3 years ago at the World Economic Forum. And we continue to struggle with it. And the face of this polycrisis is the geopolitical upheavals, the escalating conflicts, and the shifting power balances. Then, of course, there's the global crisis, which is intensifying of climate change impacts. So forest fires, cloud bursts, and more people dying because of and being displaced because of climate change than active conflicts are new realities. And of course, technological disruption, it's taking over our lives, and we are all wondering if it's also going to take over our jobs. So rapid advancement in artificial intelligence and cyber capabilities, reshaping statecraft. Also how you can't be without it, but we need to know how to master it. And my only one sentence to this is that technology will replace a lot of ordinary minds. It cannot replace extraordinary minds. So it's time to leap on to be an extraordinary brain. Failing global institutions, we can't talk enough about it. United Nations has become a joke. UN Security Council has become a joke. We used to struggle for veto. The institution itself is now under serious questions. And one wonders that everything that happened after 1945, everything that was built after 1945 is already in tatters. And will we pay the price we did for building these institutions yet one again? Because we hear whispers about the Third World War, so to say. And the cost was high then. The cost is going to be much higher this time. I'm going to quote a famous cliched saying here. They say that we don't know what the We know what the Third World War would be fought with. We have a fair idea. We have the capacity to destroy this world not once, this planet not once, but several times. But the Fourth World War will only be fought with sticks and stones, because that is all that we be left with. So, and of course, the new themes are rising multipolarity, which is now the new reality. And of course, the decline of the West, the shrinking of the West, so to say, and the moving of the economic fulcrums, particularly from the West to the East, but moving of economic fulcrums to the East without a political will to take over roles of responsibility is the new question. Please move on. Huh? Okay, sorry. So the fading echoes of liberal international order. The liberal international order faces significant challenges. It's not just the weakening of democratic norms or the free trade agreements collapsing or the proponents of free trade agreements or free trade or capitalist societies becoming the flag bearers of protectionism, and the new buzzword from the United States is tariffs and more tariffs, and how erosion of trust in established multilateral bodies is going to haunt us for a very long time to come, and thus the rise of nationalist and protectionist policies. Are we once again moving towards the survival of the fittest? Realism never went away. The realist paradigms always stayed with us, but the ideological and the ideology of liberal international order lubricated it to make this world livable. The question is that, is this world even livable now? And then the international order is undergoing changes of a magnitude not seen since 1945. What is going to be the cost of this change? And who is going to pay the cost of this change? The most vulnerable of the society. Like you say, see what's happening in Gaza, or perhaps Kashmir, or perhaps even in Ukraine. The rise of multipolarity. New power centers are emerging, fundamentally reshaping global dynamics. I'm sure you're all aware of this. It's China's economic and technological ascendancy. But once again, ladies and gentlemen, I can't emphasize enough the unwillingness on China's part to take on the role of a global leader. It seems to be very happy with being the economic leader. There have some initiatives that are surfacing, but are they enough? And are they happening fast enough? Are important questions. India declining relevance to the West, but for now, there's almost chest thumping in Pakistan about it. But who else is going to fill those shoes and cater to those tall orders that allowed India to its first convergence? I say something to a lot of people when I've asked about this question. I said, when India was going into a close dance with the United States, I would always say to my Indian friends that we've been there before. It's your turn to experience it and then perhaps learn from it. We all need to learn from it. Even Pakistan has to learn from it. And then, of course, an assertive Russia, its foreign policy, its energy influence, perhaps more proactive than China to take on a global role. And it is nostalgia, but once again, does Russia has the wherewithal to do that? Again, a question we do not have a direct answer to. Brazil, significant regional and global player, but not to that stature yet. And last but not least, Pakistan. Increasing strategic importance in South Asia. Every time that importance has increased, the cost has been overbearing. We need to understand and we need to step into these new roles that are being assigned to us with a lot of caution and understanding of the implications that come with it, whether it is being a bridge state between Iran and the United States, whether it is being combating terrorism seen only through the lens of the United States, causing issues that will then haunt us and continue to haunt us, be it Balochistan, be it KPK. The global south increasingly rejects Western-centric governance models. That is true, advocating for diverse approaches to international relations. But the kind of leadership you require to make that happen seems to be lacking. We can't have any discussion unless we do a reference to the 100-hour war, but it did have create what we call shifting alliances. The short but impact 100-hour war between India and Pakistan in May 2025 served as a crucial turning point, dramatically altering regional perception and alliances. And it is not just that Trump has become fond of Pakistan all of a sudden, that he has mentioned it now for 27 times in the conversations that he's had. And it's also not just his desire to get the Nobel Peace Prize. I think there's more to it. And the more is in the changing matrix of South Asia. The swift resolution highlighted the changing nature of modern conflict and deterrence. How a counter-offensive can be mounted through convergence of interest and defeat a power 8 times bigger, who also has the backing of a superpower. Those were the new dynamics of this conflict. It exposed vulnerabilities in traditional security frameworks, prompted a re-evaluation of military doctrines and strategic partnerships across the region. And a sobering thought was, how close did we come to a nuclear war? Yet once again, although we've witnessed what it does to the globe, to the people, to humanity. China's unwavering support for Pakistan, well, it's nice to have it, but my submission is that I'm a hardcore realist. There are no permanent friends and there are no permanent enemies. They're permanent interest. Pakistan has done some very smart, polished diplomatic footwork. But ladies and gentlemen, India has also done it. India may be on the back seat for now and Pakistan on a winning streak for now. Will it stay there? What are we doing for the sustainability of this so-called good space that we've acquired with the United States in particular and in the region also? So India's strategic miscalculations and regional isolation, I don't want to really spend a lot of time here because this is does not fit in largely into the ambit of our conference theme. But one thing is very clear, India's hard hedging has backfired. And Pakistan right now is on that hard hedging carpet. Pakistan needs to be more cautious how it moves forward. Pakistan's strategic positioning is also important in South Asia. I keep bringing South Asia because I think when we talk about the changing, moving of the fulcrum from the west to the east, it is largely about how the conflict between US and China will shape up. And Pakistan has done almost acrobats in doing the tightrope walking between Beijing and Washington, but more needs to be seen. So China's strategic embrace, allies consolidated, geopolitical shifts, exposing the patterns. For example, India's violence towards model lost international traction, and Pakistan framed it as a dangerous election tactic. Violence towards has not just been used by India. A lot of other countries use it. Their narrative wins, Pakistan's diplomatic messaging aligned with global concerns of regional escalation and false flag risks. Pakistan had been highlighting this for a long time. This time it just resonated with what the changes that were taking place in global politics and the regional constructs. Again, how the US-India geostrategic tie split will impact us, will impact South Asia, will impact global politics. If US has given up on India as the net security provider, if US has given up on India being sort of being allowed to be the alternative to China? Are they grooming someone else? Are they looking for someone else? And who that someone else would be are important questions once again, ladies and gentlemen. So something that I think we should all sort of dwell more deeply into is multiplexity. I think we're not into a multi-polar world. We are into just a more complex world, a decentralized, multi-dimensional, and diversified global order with several leadership constructs. So multipolarity is inherently dangerous. A multipolar world is one that is prone to war. However, multiplexity gives you an alternative. Historically, multipolarity has been linked to conflict. World War I, World War II, the multipolarity that we witness now also bring with it whispers of World War III, and of course the 30-year war. So even if we are in a multipolar world and the polarity is high, perhaps we should be looking at alternatives to understand it better. So it's probably multiplexity is a more nuanced understanding of the current global system. And what is that? It's an absence of a hegemon. It's proliferation of actors. It is deep interdependence. Complex economic and social ties. I'll just look at the economic ties. US tried decoupling with China. The trade volumes still remain extremely high. China and India have been loggerheads with each other. Trade volumes have actually gone up in 24-25. So this deep interdependence is going to determine how far this multipolarity will go. And the multi-level governance, that is decentralized decision-making, because centralization of decision-making, whether it is United Nations or the powerful corridors of power, they're not delivering. And of course, coming to terms with the ideological diversity of the world, both in terms of not just religious ideological diversity, but also political ideological diversity. So polarity of values and norms. It is interesting how US has destroyed rule of law and how China talks about the new rule of law. So regional realignments, a shifting global chessboard. Key regions are experiencing significant geopolitical shifts. South Asia and Indo-Pacific, growing strategic competition and formation of new security partnerships, Quads, etc., but also how Quads was absolutely neutral and quiet when India did the Pahalgam false flag operation, calling it Pakistan's act. India's shrinking role as a counterweight and regional anchor. So this is South Asia and Indo-Pacific, and also how the Asia-Pacific politics will change. China's increasing diplomatic engagement, China, Iran, Saudi reconstructions. Also how China is investing in Afghanistan, has given Afghanistan de facto recognition. Russia has recognized the Afghanistan government. So emergence of BRICS plus with new members like Saudi Arabia, Iran and UAE, and US telling India, you're either with us or against us this time. So it is actually questions India's presence in SCO. It questions India's presence in BRICS. And it's not just the US that is questioning this presence. It is also other members of SCO and BRICS that question that presence. So diversification of foreign policy by traditional US allies. Of course, IR theories are in a huge state of flux. Traditional international relation theories are being re-evaluated in the light of current dynamics. Realism is changing. Focus on power politics remains relevant, but state-centric assumptions are challenged by non-state actors. Liberalism, emphasis on multilateralism and cooperation, faces decline in the midst of rising nationalism and protectionism. I mean, tariffs are now a US buzzword. The rise of identity, narratives, and social norms gain prominence in explaining state behavior and international conflicts. Non-state and emerging actors, international landscape is no longer solely defined by powerful non-state actors. Powerful non-state actors play an increasingly critical role. So global corporations, they will come together for their interests. Tech giants will come together. Mergers will happen. The entire infrastructure of tech is under the seas. It's going to change the politics of the sea lanes. They say if there is a third world, it's going to happen on the sea lanes. Economic powerhouses, multinational shape trade, investment, and labor policies across borders. We all deal, so most of us are academicians, and we deal with the Z generation, which is a freelancing generation. Corporate cultures are changing. Working hours are changing. How growth, progress, and success is being defined is changing. So civil society and digital movements, NGOs advocate for human rights, environmental protection, and humanitarian aid influencing global norms. There is transnational activism, digital platforms empower movements, mobilize across borders, impacting state policy and public opinion. You see, it's interesting how India can impose a digital blackout in Kashmir and do digital apartheid, but Israel is unable to do it to Gaza. So forecasting the next decade and some key takeaways, and this is my humble opinion. Increased fragmentation and regionalization, we'll continue to see that in the next decade. Formation of tech-driven alliances and rivalries, governance by flexible issues, coalitions bypassing traditional multilateral bodies. This is happening next decade. We will continue to see more of it. And then, of course, multipolarity is the new reality. Unipolarity is no longer viable. I think it's just not there. Multiplexity with its diversity and decentralization may offer a path to stability. I'm a huge supporter and proponent of multiplexity. I think that is what defines the world today. International relations theories must adapt beyond Western-centric paradigms. We need indigenous understanding of issues to give indigenous solutions that are sustainable. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I'll be very happy to take questions now. We're not entering a new world order. We're entering the world of new orders. Thank you so much.